Hello everyone, welcome back to another Blu-ray review. Today we're going to be taking a look at a Blu-ray box set. And the Blu-ray box set that we're going to be taking a look at is the Dietrich and von Sternberg in Hollywood Blu-ray box set from the Criterion Collection. And before we go into this set specifically, I want to talk a little bit about Marlene Dietrich and Josef von Sternberg. Marlene Dietrich specifically is kind of becoming one of my all-time favorite actresses. She is someone who I've delved into a little bit over the years, but haven't really delved into enough until this moment. And I think the reason being is because you really have to see her work that she did with Josef von Sternberg. This is where you get the sense of, I would say, cinematic identity with Marlene Dietrich. Marlene Dietrich was an actress who was in films for several decades, starting in the late 20s and moving all the way up until I believe the 60s and 70s. Josef von Sternberg is someone whose career actually started in, I would say, the early 20s as well as late teens when he was an assistant director. He is originally from Austria, and he came over here to the United States and got into the Hollywood scene during the silent era. And he worked for such studios as MGM and United Artists in the 20s. But where he really got his claim to fame, and I think where he really put his stamp on cinema, was working for Paramount. And this is where pretty much all of these films are from Paramount. But what is so interesting about him and Marlene Dietrich is their combination together really brought out the best in their careers. Marlene Dietrich was from Germany, and like I said, von Sternberg was from Austria, so they're from that kind of Eastern European area, which at the time, of course, was in all kinds of worldwide political turmoil, change, and all these kinds of things where it came to the post-World War I world. And they came over and kind of adopted the United States as their home, for the most part, specifically Marlene Dietrich. And there's a lot in this box set that goes into all of her kind of backstory about growing up and being a musician, as well as becoming an actress and being in like vaudeville and in stage and stuff like that. And this box set is pretty much, you know, film school in a box, which many of the box sets from Criterion are. But if you're interested in learning a lot more about Marlene Dietrich and Josef von Sternberg, you'd really need to dive into this box set, and we'll get into all the extras and all that kind of stuff really soon. But what is a film that I think is most important, and a film that's a bit of a companion piece when it comes to this box set, is the first film that Marlene Dietrich and Josef von Sternberg did together, and this would be The Blue Angel. And this is put out by Kino. And this is specifically important is because the success of this film led to these films, essentially. Although Josef von Sternberg was already in Hollywood, he essentially discovered Marlene Dietrich for this movie, and it became a huge international hit. There are two different versions of this film. There's an English version, there's a German version. It's an amazing film. It may be my favorite film that they did together. They did a total of 7 films together, and these are all of them. Let's dive into this set. This is put out by Kino, like I said, and this, I believe, is still available. You've seen the cover. Let's look on the back. So here on the back, you have a list of all of the extras as well as technical specs, blurb of the film, and all of those things. Don't worry, I'll read off all of those things right now. This is a 2-disc Ultimate Edition set. This is, of course, a slip box. But what you have here on the back for special features is the original German language version with optional English subtitles, newly restored in high definition from archival 35mm elements by the Friedrich Wilhelm Murnau Stiftung. The English language version on Blu-ray for the first time. Next up is a scene of comparison of the two versions. Marlene Dietrich Blue Angel screen test, Dietrich interview footage, Dietrich concert footage, 2 trailers, and an image gallery. And there is a difference in runtime. The German is 107 minutes, and the English language version is 104 minutes. And this film is absolutely fantastic. I cannot recommend it enough. Opening it up here, you have essentially the same exact artwork, both on the front and the back. You're not missing anything. Inside you have both of the discs. One is the English language and one is the German language. And yep, there's no inner artwork or anything like that. What is so unique about Josef von Sternberg, I think, is just his aesthetic and just the way in which he lit and set decorated his films and just the mood and the feeling he was able to elicit. He's also someone who, although was not brought up or went through the sense of German expressionism in the 1920s, like let's say a Fritz Lang, his films feel and look very much like German expressionistic films, but they also have this sense of Hollywood within them, and they also have this sense of moving cameras and all of that kind of stuff, and he was really able to capture so much interesting international allure with his films. You'll see where all of these films are set in rather exotic locations, and he was able to make that kind of movie magic happen just by his sense of aesthetic in utilizing sets and like the limited location shootings within the United States. So first up here, you have the exterior of the set, and you have of course, Marlene Dietrich and Josef von Sternberg. They had a very interesting both personal and professional relationship. They were lovers at one point in time, which is very interesting to me. There's a lot of interesting characteristics about both of these people that you learn in this set. So this set contains Morocco, Dishonored, Shanghai Express, Blonde Venus, The Scarlet Empress, and The Devil is a Woman. And these films range from 1930 to 1935. And those dates are important because these films are technically pre-code films. Pre-code films meaning that these films came out before the Hays Code or the Hollywood Production Code was really enforced in 1934 or so. Even The Devil is a Woman is technically kind of a pre-code film. Granted, they were able to get away with a lot less than the previous films, but it's still, I would say, is kind of a pre-code film. And the importance of being pre-code is you're able to get away with so much more. And these films are able to be more sexual, more expressive, and to, you know, go into territories and topics and things that films that came out after the code was enacted weren't allowed to do, or else they wouldn't get approved and they wouldn't be allowed to be shown, basically, and they had to go back in and be re-edited. On the back here, you have kind of the overall look at what is in this box set, but we'll go into each individual movie. Here you have the back with a list of all of the movies, as well as an overall arching look at all of the special features, and of course, the usual blurb. You may want to watch out because these thin packs here are kind of a little bit tightly put in, so they don't really fall out too easily. But the first film we have here is Morocco. This came out in 1930. This film runs 92 minutes long. All of these films are under 2 hours. They're all anywhere between 70 to an hour and 40 minutes, which is kind of a really sweet runtime if you're looking to binge all of these films. On the back here, we have all of the special features, as well as the technical specs and the usual stuff. And the special features are a new 2K restoration with uncompressed monaural soundtrack, new interview with film scholar Janet Bergstrom, Weimar on the Pacific, a new documentary about actor Marlene Dietrich, German origins, featuring film scholars Gerd Germonden and Noah Eisenberg, preview interview with Deutsch Kinmaltech, curator Silke Runnenberg on the real Amy Jolly, The Legionnaire and the Lady, a 1936 Lux Radio Theater adaptation of the film, featuring Dietrich and actor Clark Gable. This film also stars a very young Gary Cooper, and it's kind of about a love triangle. Gary Cooper plays a member of the French Foreign Legion who happens to be in Morocco and falls in love with the Marlene Dietrich character, but she has another suitor, and there's all kind of stuff going on. It's a very promiscuous film in many of its regards, it being a pre-code film, but opening it up here, you get a great shot of a still photo from the film as well as the disc. It's kind of plain disc art, but it's very functional. And moving right along here, you have the next film in the box set, and this is Dishonored. Here is the front, another great shot of Marlene Dietrich. Marlene Dietrich photographed or loved the camera so much, or at least the way in which they made her look is just so stunning. The shadows and the lighting in these films are just absolutely incredible. This film here is more of an espionage film where Marlene Dietrich actually plays like an undercover agent during World War I. Her name is X-27. That's her code name. It's a very interesting look at what an espionage film was before we had the modern day sense of spy films. And here is the back. I really like the color scheme font of this box set. It's got, the black, the white, and the gold lettering. It's really, really nice. So for the special features, we have a new restored 4K digital transfer with uncompressed monaural soundtrack, new interview with director Josef von Sternberg's son, Nicholas, new documentary on actor Marlene Dietrich's status as a feminist icon featuring film scholars Mary Desjardins, Amy Lawrence, and Patricia White. That is extremely fascinating. I really can't emphasize enough how great these special features are in just learning about not only who Marlene Dietrich was, but what she symbolized and how iconic she was, specifically for women and specifically for the LGBTQ community as we know it now, because she was rather androgynous when it came to her appearance, and her sexuality is very fascinating, specifically within the time in which she lived. She was bisexual and having partners of both male and the female gender, and she also was someone who had a lot of romances with a lot of people. We're talking about the 1930s, 1940s here. You would think that things would be more traditional, but she was anything but a traditional, so that's why she's just so unique. But next we have a new video essay by critics Cristina Alvarez Lopez and Adrian Martin about the form and style of the films. And next we have what I consider to be my second favorite collaboration of Josef von Sternberg and Marlene Dietrich, and this is Shanghai Express. I just love this cover. This is just a gorgeous, stunning moment of the film. And here is the back. And for special features here, we have a new 4K digital restoration with uncompressed monaural soundtrack, new interview with film scholar Ho-Mei King, author of Lost in Translation, Orientalism Cinema, and the Enigmatic Signifier. That is very, very interesting and very, very fascinating because they go over specifically the way in which Orientalism is expressed in this film and as well as expressed in Hollywood at the time, and specifically going over the actress Anna May Wong, who was a Asian film star of the time. She was from the silent era where she got the most of her work. When it came to transitioning to talkies as well as Hollywood is when things became more complicated and when things became more biased towards any type of minority actor or actress, and that is of course one of the negative things about Hollywood that still persists to this day. But before we take a look at the inside of Shanghai Express, I don't think that we looked at the inside of Dishonored. So here is the inside artwork for Dishonored as well as the disc. And now let's take a look at the inside of Shanghai Express. And why I love Shanghai Express so much is because there's such a small atmosphere to it. It takes place predominantly on a train. It takes place in an exotic location, like the area surrounding Shanghai. It delves into the political atmosphere at the time, or the political turmoil of the time. It plays into that. It does have a lot of negative aspects to it. There is a character in this film who is playing someone who is of Chinese descent, and they're not Chinese in real life. Yet again, one of those things where Hollywood casting someone into one nationality when they're not part of that nationality. That's something that still persists today. But what I really love about this film is Marlene Dietrich and the way she plays this character of Shanghai Lily and this kind of redemption arc she tries to go on and all of those things. Yet it's pushing the boundaries because she is a courtesan. So she is a character who, at the time, we are, as audience members, are not supposed to like people who have, like, ill repute and things like that. But there's something endearing about her character and redemptive about her character, and the relationship in which she has with this other character in the film, who's played by Clive Brook, I find to be very, very fascinating. And Anna May Wong is amazing in this film as well, and it really makes me want to seek out more of her work. Making our way to the fourth film in this set, and this is a film that is kind of a departure of kind of these international films, and this is Blonde Venus. And as you can see here, look at just that costuming and that makeup and how elaborate it is, and yeah, it is that good in this film as well. And the reason why this film is a bit of a different departure is it's because it's more of a melodrama than the other films were. Granted, those other films did have melodramatic moments, but this film, I feel, dials that melodrama up to another level. And it's not that melodrama is bad or anything like that, but it feels like a departure from some of those other films. But this film is also, you know, very, very good. The thing with this box set is I would say all of these films are very, very good. And if you're curious about the picture quality and audio quality of any of these films, as I've been reading off here, they got all new either 2K or 4K restorations, and these films have been restored back and look better than ever. The black and white is just so sumptuous and so gorgeous to look at. I just love black and white cinema. I love just that aesthetic and how amazing it looks on screen. Let's take a look at the back of Blonde Venus. Here's the back of Blonde Venus, and once again you have that beautiful gold lettering. I really love that font. I just like how good it looks on a marquee. There's literally a marquee in this movie that says Blonde Venus on it in the, big, neon lighting. It's in black and white, so it's not really neon, but still, I just love the way it pops. So when it comes to special features, you get a new restored 4K digital transfer with uncompressed monaural soundtrack, do interview with costume designer and historian Deborah Nadoolman Landis about the film's costumes and their designer, the legendary Travis Banton, do interview with Deutsche Kindelmathek curator Silke Ronenberg about the museum's Marlene Dietrich collection in Berlin. And that's really, really fascinating, this idea of all of this iconic memorabilia from Marlene Dietrich in this museum. And then you get the fashion side of Hollywood, a 1935 publicity short featuring Dietrich and Banton. And taking a look here on the inside, you get, once again, another glorious, glorious shot of Marlene Dietrich. And what we have next is another film that's a bit of a different than some of the earlier films, and even different than Blonde Venus, is The Scarlet Empress. And what makes this so different is that it is a period piece, and it is about Catherine the Great. So it's a biopic as well. And of course, Marlene Dietrich plays a young Catherine the Great. And this film kind of covers the early life of Catherine the Great as she was rising to power within Russia at the time. And of course, it takes all kind of historical liberties and all that kind of stuff. Many biopics aren't 100% accurate. Of course, there's so much artistic license taken. Let's take a look here on the back. And I'm not quite sure if you can tell, but the special features lists kind of get shorter and shorter as the films go along. So, for this one, when it comes to special features, you get a new restored 4K digital transfer with uncompressed monaural soundtrack, television interview with actor Marlene Dietrich from 1971, and that is it. Taking a look here on the inside, you get another still from the film, as well as the disc. And what is so interesting about this film is that it's told in almost an anthological way, because you're covering so much time that the film, I think, suffers from a little bit when it comes to pacing issues and stuff like that. But what really kind of saves the film for me is the pageantry of it is really fascinating. And Marlene Dietrich's character change and tone throughout the film is fascinating to watch. And next we have the final film in this collection, and this is The Devil is a Woman, which is actually a film set in Spain. And the film is probably my least favorite in this box set, and maybe my least favorite Josef von Sternberg and Marlene Dietrich collaboration. It is their last one, so perhaps they didn't go out on the best note, but even saying that, it's still a really good film. This film is the shortest of all the films in the box set. This film is only 79 minutes long, came out in 1935, and what is interesting about this film is, like I said, it came out technically after the Hays Code was already enacted, so it couldn't get away with as much as the earliest films did, but it did get away with quite a few things. But let's take a look at the back here. So, for special features, we have a new restored 4K digital transfer with uncompressed monaural soundtrack, If It Isn't Pain, a song removed from the film. Let's take a look on the inside really quick. Yet again, another still and the disc art. And it would not be a Criterion Collection release without a booklet. And what we have here is a rather thick and hefty booklet. Here's the front cover. Here is the back, which is some artwork. And on the cover is, of course, Josef von Sternberg and Marlene Dietrich, if you didn't get a good chance to look at that. And what we have here is kind of just an overall look at each individual film, as well as, I think, the careers of both Marlene Dietrich and Josef von Sternberg. Yeah, you have all kind of essays in here, which are really, really fascinating, and stills from the movie, and all kind of stuff. Here's a nice double spread look on the inside here. But the one thing I do want to mention before we go here is that this box set, of course, has a number, as each individual movie also has a number as well. So let's take a look at these numbers before we go, because Criterion is notorious for having their editions numbered. So first up is the box itself. The collection is numbered, and it is number 930. And we have Morocco, which is number 931, appropriate. And we have Dishonored, which is number 932. You're seeing a pattern here. And we have Shanghai Express, which is number 933. Blonde Venus is number 934. And the Scarlet Empress is actually number 109. So that means that this was available in the Criterion Collection in a different form previously to this. My guess is DVD. The Devil is a Woman at 935. I think that this is an essential box set for anyone who is interested in both Marlene Dietrich and Josef von Sternberg, as well as someone who's a fan of kind of classic 1930s cinema, also someone who's a fan of collecting Criterion Collection editions. I think this is a must-own. So, thank you all for watching this video, and if you like this video, please check out the other videos I have on my channel, as well as subscribing.